Hello and welcome to Infinity. I'm Charlie Seraphin. If you've got aches, pains, or creaks in your body, you'll find the next half hour of interest. We're going to be talking about Acu Yoga, a bodywork system which combines the principles of acupressure and yoga. Our guest is Michael Gach, founder and director of the Acupressure Workshop in Berkeley. Michael has been teaching classes in Jin Shin, Shiatsu, acupressure massage, reflexology, Do-In, and Acu Yoga for 10 years. He's the author of 2 books, Acu Yoga and the Bum Back book. Michael, in that introduction, we threw out a lot of words. Let's see if we can't go through and do several definitions to begin with. What is acupuncture, and what's the difference between acupuncture and acupressure?
Well, both acupressure and acupuncture are using the same points, principles, and meridians, which are the channels of human electrical energy that circulate through the body. The points are where this energy gets blocked up and where you can tap into and rebalance the life force inside us. Now, the different styles of acupressure, Jin Shin, Shiatsu, Do-In, reflexology, are using the same points, and they're all interrelated because the body is really one holistic system. Although there's many different components to this system within this network in the body, so that whether you hold the points for different periods of time or you use different type of stimulation with your hands, different parts of your hands, that's how we've coined the different words for acupressure. Acupressure, like music, is the main title, and then you've got various forms like jazz, rock and roll, and classical, and then same thing with acupressure. Probably the most classic form of acupressure is Jin Shin, and this is the form I've done for the longest period of time.
Okay, so to clarify once again, acupuncture is the use of needles at those critical points. Acupressure is just the use of pressure with your hand or your elbow or your thumb or
That's
whatever.
right. You can use various parts of your hand or your fist or palms, but it's using the same points as acupuncture.
Okay. Now you used the term Jin Shin. What is that?
Jin Shin uses the most important acupuncture points. See, there's over 365 traditional points. Most of those points are on both sides of the body. They're bilateral. But in Jin Shin, the most potent points are held for longer periods of time. And this lends itself to meditation in that you contact and you'll be able to feel the exact point. And by staying there, you'll also be able to detect when the point opens up. Now, I'll tell you, when you hold a point, say you hold the point, say, between your thumb and index finger. You can do that right now. There's a webbing in between your thumb and index finger. This is probably one of the most common points that's used for headaches. It's just contraindicated for pregnancy. But as you hold it, you'll be able to feel it open, the point open, when it pulsates. When it pulsates, that means that the energy, the life force, and in China this is called the qi. In Japan it's called ki energy. It's the pranic energy that we bring in through the breath. It circulates through these meridians and gets blocked up at these points, and this is where we can tap into it, which gets into what is an acupressure point, which has a high electrical conductivity at the surface of the skin. See, at these spots there's a low skin resistance, so by putting pressure and just contacting it with the power of human touch, you'll be able to tap into this electrical system.
You said when it starts pulsating, that's when it's opened,
That's
as
right.
opposed to when it's closed. If it's not pulsating, it's closed?
Right. When it's not pulsating, it's closed, or when it's tense. Often there's muscular contraction that accumulates around these specific acupressure points.
Okay, we're going to get back to what make these critical points, what they have in common. But first, a real dumb question, because I always get to ask at least one real dumb question. You mentioned a significant number, about 365. Any connection with the number of days in the modern calendar?
Well, you made that connection, and obviously there is. There's many, many connections with the times of day, seasonal changes, in terms of what's going on in nature and also what's going on in the body. And this has a lot to do with the 5 elements and the 4 seasons, adding one extra element, which is earth. So this acupressure is based on traditional Chinese medicine. And there is a correlation between what's going on outside in our environment, environmental changes, including the seasons, and what's going on internally in the body. And by what I love about acupressure is that when you learn a few points, you're able to help yourself and help other people to deal with changes. It's like, for instance, some people have difficulty adapting to changes, and there are points for adaptability, let alone points that help to rebalance the emotions and alleviate tensions.
Okay, let's go to what makes an acupressure point. What do they have in common? What do we know about them?
Well, as I said, a point has a high electrical conductivity at the surface of the skin and tends to collect tension. So if you have, for instance, tension in your shoulders, what I would do is I'd take your fingertips, reach around to your trapezius muscle, which runs along the top of your shoulder, and hold right on the muscle. Underneath it is the acupressure point. Certain points are more muscular, some points are more neurovascular, some points relate more to the endocrine system. This is a more muscular point and is a gateway to the neurological and muscular and blood flow, vascular blood flow through the neck and into the brain.
Is it easier to hit those points if it's covered by a big muscle and you just kind of push down on the muscle, and if you're off by a few millimeters here and there, it's not as critical as some real fine point that you might have to go in to get it with a pin?
Right, exactly. If you're using a very fine instrument like a needle, you've got to be sure exactly where you're going. You don't want to. This is an invasive therapy. It's very potent. What I'm talking about is acupuncture. Mm-hmm. With your fingers, you're using a much thicker instrument, and it's not invasive. In other words, you can just hold these points, and even with light pressure, affect a great deal of change within the body. It's the application of pressure that's important. The angles of each point. Not only is it important if you're going to be an acupressurist to learn where these spots are anatomically, but exactly what angle do you press the points on, because the points lie internally in the body.
With these acupressure points, can they be determined by any scientific gear? Do they have an electrospectrograph that can be attached to the skin and you can find out exactly where they are?
Yes, with microvoltmeters, skin-resistant tests, you'll be able to detect scientifically where these points are located. And there's various types of equipment that are on the market now. Some use sound. In other words, when the frequency is greater through the point and it opens up, you'll hear a higher pitch. Other meters will register it just on a meter, or a light or a beeper or something like that. But yes, it can be detected scientifically, these points.
Are the points relatively the same for all individuals? We always say nobody's fingerprints are exactly alike. Everybody's really different. There are a lot of differences between people. Is that true of acupressure points too, that yours may be a little bit higher or lower on your ear, or a little bit to the left or right on your shoulder?
Exactly. For instance, if you tend to have shoulder tension and your shoulders are raised slightly, your scapula is elevated, of course, all of those points are going to change in relationship to that structure of your body. Yeah.
Okay. You say that it dates back, this whole system really is traditional Chinese medicine. Mm-hmm. How does it translate in the Western world?
In terms of what?
Well, in terms of your training, how did you specifically get involved in it and further the training?
Well, I studied with various masters and teachers in the Oriental therapy arts, including acupuncturists, acupressurists, people from Japan and Korea and China, and also people from this country. And many of my teachers, and as well as I, have spent many, many years correlating the information that's in acupuncture texts and relating that to acupressure. And this has been done. You have to understand that acupressure is much older than acupuncture. The Chinese had their hands before they ever had needles. So there's a wealth of information that's been passed down through centuries, what actually works when you press certain areas. And there's 3 ways that acupressure was developed. One is just instinctive. You're sitting here with you're making a fist and you're leaning your head against kind of pressing up against your cheekbone. And a lot of people will hold their forehead or naturally fold their arms in a certain way or put their hands on their knees when they're sitting or something. You're often drawn to hold these points, especially when we're tense. you tend to want to rub those areas which are the actual points. So it's instinctive. For instance, if you fall down, scrape your knee, or if you bump your elbow or stub your toe, you want to hold the hurt. It's instinctive, okay? Secondly, acupressure is subjective. Just through awareness it developed. And thirdly, the wealth of information of what actually works. That was correlated and charted. So we have really thousands of years, it's over 5,000 years old, this traditional Chinese art of healing called acupressure.
Are there dangers associated with it? You know, the Vulcan grip, if you were to grab people in a certain way, you could paralyze them, or you can kill people by pressing on the temples at the wrong position.
You see this all the time on Star Trek.
Sure.
You know, and in fact, in the Orient, the points have been used in the martial arts to defend and protect oneself. By striking the points, you can paralyze or even kill somebody. But my whole orientation is to teach people how to use it for the healing benefit.
What I'm wondering is if someone is listening right now and they decide that, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea, I think I'll reach up here and see if I can't find one of those points, and if they start pushing and poking around, is there a potential for any negative impact within the meridians? Could they end up blocking points that are now open?
Well, yes. The one thing that's important to do when you're performing or practicing acupressure is that it's important to use sensitivity. And now, the best way to do this is to go into the spots, the acupressure points, very slowly. Gradual application of pressure is the art of it. Now, we've been talking about the science. Now, the art of it is to approach the body with sensitivity, and so you go into the points gradually. And that's very important. Whereas, the points that Spock is using in Star Trek, squeezing the trapezius muscle on the shoulder, and the person cringes and falls to their knees and, faints. What he's doing is he's pressing in there with his thumb and fingers really quickly. And anybody can do that, and it'll send a shooting pain up into your head. And if you do it fast enough and hard enough, it'll paralyze you temporarily.
So the Vulcan grip does in fact work.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think most of our listeners are familiar with yoga, a system of stretches and body positions that's really good for your back and really good for your health and your endurance and your muscles and your attitude and everything else. But to combine the two seems a little bit foreign, at least to me. Acupressure and yoga, how do they come together?
They come together very naturally, just by the incorporating posture. These certain natural postures press particular points. Now, when I began teaching, people were very interested in self-help. And through my research, find out what is the most effective way to treat yourself with acupressure, I found out that posture was very important. And, for instance, a lot of people have trouble with their backs. Over 80% of not only the American people, but every person in the world will at some point have a back problem or pain. And this is a hard area to get to. How do you treat yourself if you can't even press it, with acupressure? So if you incorporate posture, and different postures will press certain points. For instance, if you lie down on your back, and you bend your knees and catch hold of your knees are bent, and you catch hold of your toes, and you rock onto your back, and you just rock back and forth and close your eyes and position your body so it's pressing the area where you feel constriction, pain, or pressure in your back. And then do deep breathing. That is a specific angle that would help to treat your back and help to open up the muscles. Now, the way this works...
Okay, do your hands and arms go between your legs when you're grabbing your toes, or on the outside of your
I
legs?
do it from the outside.
Okay.
But really, you'll bend your legs will be bent and you're holding your toes, okay, and you're rocking onto your back by bringing your feet over your head or right up above your head, and you're going to reposition your feet at a specific angle so that a certain part of your back that's tight will be pressed with the floor.
That would probably bring your shoulders and your head off the floor.
No, your head is going to be on the floor and your shoulders are going to be on the floor.
Okay.
You're rocking onto your back.
Okay.
This is in yoga is called the plow pose, which is a position that some people can't do. In Hatha yoga, they attempt to straighten the legs and perfect the pose. Now, when you become advanced, I recommend that. But for people that just want to help themselves at home, that have never done yoga, which is really the people that I want to reach, because I think that so many people have common stress-related ailments that they can help themselves with doing self-help techniques like Acu Yoga.
Okay.
Now, what I wanted to tell you was about how this works from a physical therapy point of view. When you have muscular tension, which is what acupressure, one of the things that acupressure works on effectively, problems that are related to stress and tension, the muscular fibers are held together and constricted. Now, by applying pressure, slow and gradual pressure on those tight muscles, the muscles will begin to elongate. The fibers elongate, and they'll relax naturally. Any physical therapist, east or west, knows that. It's a really basic law.
With this back rock that you've talked about for one of the simple approaches to back pain, how long should the individual rock? And do you try to get so that all of your weight is balanced on this very specific point where it's hurting the most? If it's in your lower back, then that's really where you want to try to balance your weight?
Yeah. This would be beneficial for pressure and tension. But if the person has a disintegrating disc, for instance, where there's a great deal of soreness, and it just hurts like it's going to break, you wouldn't do this position. You'd want to probably use some trigger points. Also, you'd probably want to get some professional help from a doctor or a chiropractor.
Okay. What about another exercise? Let's say headaches and tension from the shoulders and the neck up, the back of your neck, the back of your head, a lot of shoulder tension, which you alluded to earlier.
Right. One thing you can do when you're in line at the bank or you're on the telephone or watching television, even if you're driving your car with one hand on the wheel, you can take the other hand, reach around and grab hold of your shoulder muscle that runs on the top of your shoulder if you're tense up there. As I was coming to this program, I felt that my right side was getting tight and I could feel kind of a pressure down my arm. And by just holding the trapezius muscle, which runs on the top of the shoulder, it really helped to release that tension and pressure. I think every day a day doesn't go by when I feel some type of a tension, and by just using some of these pressure points and self-help techniques, I'm able to help myself.
Early on, you talked about energy within the body. Some people are not aware of the energy flow within their body. Obviously, they need to do it to get up, to take a shower, to
Exactly.
eat, and carry on. But some people go through the whole day without smelling the flowers or being aware of body energies.
Right.
What could an individual do to heighten their awareness of their own body energies? And can they not only heighten their awareness but increase the energy in their body?
I think there's a number of things that you can do. Any of the spiritual disciplines will develop this. Tai Chi, meditation, yoga. But also, if you're not drawn to a spiritual discipline, physical exercise, followed by deep relaxation. That's one of the things that most Americans forget, is that after you are active, it's important to be passive and just totally relax, so that there's a rejuvenation of your entire system, and you'll be able to reap the benefits of all the hard work that you did. A lot of times athletes will work out and the next day be stiff. Now, when you work out, it does stimulate these points internally because you're rotating your joints, you're breathing very deeply, and it's stimulating to the lungs and really massages the body internally. But afterwards, it's important to relax. A lot of athletes don't do this, and therefore they wind up feeling stiff or sore the next day. If they relax afterwards, their body will heal, and they'll get the benefits of all the work they did.
If someone is listening right now and they say, yeah, okay, I'll take your word for it. I know there's energy in there somewhere, but I can't feel it circulating in my body. Is there an exercise that you could direct them toward that would help them have more of an awareness of the energy within their body?
Absolutely. There's a set of 8 exercises that I do every morning, and they've been done traditionally in the Orient for thousands of years. And they're similar, they look something like Tai Chi, but they're just basic, easy breathing exercises. And whether I'm feeling lousy during the day or I just want to rejuvenate myself, I'll do these exercises. I also suggest you could also just find a yoga class, because yoga, as I said, presses a whole series of points and will develop. And along with that, I would do deep breathing. A lot of people are very stiff. If you focus on breathing very deeply in the postures, you'll progress, and you'll begin after a while to tune into this life force inside you. Also, I think that diet is important, because if we turn to a more healthy diet, naturally, physiologically, your body will be cleaner, and therefore you'll be able to feel this life force inside.
Are there other specific things? We talked about back pains, and you said for headache you can reach around and grab the shoulder muscles and try to loosen it up that way. Other aches and pains that are common, leg pains, a numbness in the leg that appears once in a while.
Yeah, there's a point on the leg that benefits not only the legs but the knees. Not only the knees, but, now this might seem phenomenal to you, but also the back. It's a back trigger point. And I want to describe where it's located. The reason why all these things, let me just first explain, the reason why this one point can be beneficial for the legs, the knees, and the back is that there's a meridian, there's a channel of human electrical energy that flows through this point and then travels into these areas. Therefore, it nourishes it. Okay, now the point is located when you bend your knee in the crease behind the knee. Now, if that is a line, you go midpoint, and that is the spot. Right in the center. You'll be just outside of a tendon that you'll feel. And you want to press straight up into and towards the kneecap. And this is angle it at different angles, and then also press in firmly. I'd use both of your thumbs and go right into the center in there, and you should feel some type of a stimulation, something that might feel even electrical.
Is there much pain associated with acupressure?
No, if there's pain, it should be the kind of pain that hurts good, somewhere in between pain and pleasure. Now, there are some people I've heard of that do shiatsu, which is one of the highly well-known forms of acupressure, and some people don't have the art of acupressure down, and when they do shiatsu, it hurts. Now, I think that isn't using sensitivity. That person hasn't mastered the art. And sometimes when it hurts, and it hurts good, people benefit from it. But some people are very sore or sensitive, and they should receive an acupressure treatment or shiatsu very lightly, and they could get immense amount of benefit from that.
For the most part, we've talked about the physical advantages of acupressure and Acu Yoga and the various disciplines that you've mentioned. Are there non-physical advantages?
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of them?
What were you getting to? I'm not quite clear.
That's pretty much it. What else can I expect to get out of a really thorough acupressure treatment other than physical relief?
Well, number one, the body tends to store tensions and really past traumas and stresses. And interestingly enough, they get stored at these points. Some people will say when they get an acupressure treatment, how did you know where to go? It's just that these are the spots, And when you get an acupressure treatment or you do it to yourself, you get in touch, you become more aware. So number one is awareness. Number two is emotional balancing. By being more in touch with yourself, you're able to become empowered and take responsibility for yourself and for your feelings. And number three is a spiritual aspect. Because as your energy opens up through these points, which is where the energy gets blocked up, you'll be able to develop yourself spiritually through your awareness and through spiritual practices. And acupressure enhances those practices, you see.
Are there any people living today or people that you have met that don't need acupressure, that they have built-in efficiency for eliminating stress and tension?
I don't think so. I think that there are many people that I've met that do other disciplines, say meditation. I've experienced people who meditate and their points are incredibly open, You hold the points for like a half a minute, and you'll get pulses, which indicate that the energy is flowing through the points. It's miraculous. So people that have developed themselves to a high degree through their disciplines, and have worked on themselves, even dancers and people who have developed themselves intellectually and are living a harmonious lifestyle, eating properly, getting exercise. They are naturally stimulating these points throughout the day. I know that I can stimulate a point, activate it through mentally, just by concentrating on the spot. In fact, many meditations are based on acupressure points. For instance, there's a point at the top of the head called the 1,000-petal lotus, which is right on the very top of the head. If you take your fingers and put them in the back of your ears and go all the way up to the top of your head from that spot, you'll find an indentation. And this is a point that relates to the pituitary gland and the 7th chakra. And you see, really all the chakras are related to acupressure. And there is a specific point for each chakra.
What happens if you press on that point on the top of your head, what used to be the soft spot?
Well, what happens is, I just feel a sensitivity when I do it. It's been used for all kinds of things, neurological problems. It's been used for opening up that vital center, and it benefits the pineal gland and pituitary gland, which are the master endocrine glands of the body. So there's immense amount of benefits. But for instance, let's take another example. If you have shoulder and neck tension, that constriction is blocking the life flows from going up into the brain, and therefore a person will not be as spiritually oriented, drawn to meditate. But when they get this release by having some of these acupressure points stimulated, whether it's through yoga or through acupressure, they will get the benefit and begin to feel the energy and have increased awareness.
What has been the acceptance in the traditional Western medical community of the concepts of acupressure?
This depends upon their education. Now, medical schools do not teach acupressure at this time. So there's relatively few doctors that really know the benefits of acupressure. And first of all, I want to make it clear that acupressure, I don't use acupressure, and it's not really it's not a treatment. It doesn't take the place of medical treatment, but it's an adjunct to Western medicine. For instance, if there's a student of mine who's a graduate now, whose wife had cancer. She was going through chemotherapy and seeing her doctor regularly. Her husband, who was taking the acupressure workshop certified training program, was going through it, and as he was doing it every night, he would give her acupressure and reflexology. She had no side effects from the chemotherapy, none. An example of how Western medicine and acupressure can go hand in hand.
Would the world be a much better place if everyone were aware of acupressure?
I think so. That's what I'm dedicated to this whole thing for.
This is Infinity. Remember to keep your mind open and listen to your heart. I'm Charlie Seraphin. Thank you for listening.